We start these meetings by asking for all of you that are non-members, raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you very much. The doors will now be locked until you visit the table up here after the meeting. In the future, when they talk about this period of time, one of the things is going to be UKIP and Nigel's main achievement to date is changing the political debate in this country. Now, every meeting we've had, this is the 7th in a series, is being filled to capacity. And it's filled to capacity mainly because of the man you're about to listen to. Nigel Farage.
And right across Europe, in Denmark where I was yesterday, in Finland, in the Netherlands, right across Europe, the peoples of Europe are saying the same thing. They want their own countries, they want their own identities, they want their own democracies. Because that is literally what has been stolen from them. Their democracy. And when you think, and perhaps there are one or two old enough in this room to remember, but when you think that twice in the 20th century, this country went to war to defend the principle of democracy, not just for us, but for other European countries too. When you think of the price that those that went before us paid for us to live in a free country, to have freedom of speech, to have the ability to govern ourselves, when you think of the gravity of that, then I think what has been done to us, not by wicked Europeans, but by our own elected politicians in Westminster. They are the people, frankly, who I think are the enemies of Britain, are the enemies of the British people, and that is why UKIP is here. We are here to fight. We want to get our country back. We want to make sure that our children and grandchildren enjoy the same privileges, the same freedom, and the same democracy that we've enjoyed in our lives. And my goodness me, isn't there a loss of faith in our politicians? You know, our career political class. And we've literally been taken over by a group of college kids. None of them have ever had a job. None of them have served in the army, set up a business, run a charity, been a trade union leader. Think back just 30 or 40 years, Parliament was full of giants, wasn't it? Full of men and women who'd really achieved in their lives before they became part of the national debate. Career politics has taken over. And with career politics, what matters more than anything else to them is, of course, their career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because most of them wouldn't get a job out there on Main Street. So keeping re-elected is actually rather important. And of course, if you are a career politician, then the best thing that's ever happened to you is called the European Union. Because provided that you state publicly that you believe in all its doings, you are virtually guaranteed a job for life. Many of our MEPs are people who lost their jobs as MPs. The retreads, I call them. They're not very keen on it, but never mind. I haven't let upsetting the odd person worry me too much over the years. You may have noticed that. So you have MPs who now become MEPs. You have former cabinet ministers who, of course, now become commissioners. And I did have to commiserate yesterday with the people of Denmark, because a terrible thing happened to Denmark on Thursday. If you don't know, they now have a member of the Kinnock family as their Prime Minister, and they have my commiseration. But you see, when I talk about career politicians, those of you that can remember the '75 referendum will remember that Kinnock was a prominent player in the No campaign, wasn't he? Yes. Kinnock was the man saying that it would be bad for our democracy, bad for jobs, it would drive down the wages, of those at the bottom of our society. But Kinnock very quickly took the pieces of silver, did 2 terms as a commissioner, his wife became an MEP, and his son and his daughter both got jobs in those agencies and organisations. A classic example of what I'm talking about, of career mattering more than country. Well, I think to some extent they've been rumbled, because the loss of faith in Labour is clear, isn't it? I mean, Blair, well, fantastic spin machine. You know, things can only get better. I mean, it all sounded wonderful, didn't it? But what did Blair do to us? I mean, Blair lied to us again and again, took us into a series of endless foreign wars, most of which did not actually serve our national interest, it seemed to me, in any way at all. And of course he appointed a Chancellor, who then succeeded him, who has left our public finances in just the most disastrous state. So I do think that the public's faith in Labour has gone and won't return for many years. And as far as the Lib Dems are concerned, you know, they really got away with it for many years because they were the plague on both your houses vote. We're voting Lib Dem because we can't stand the big 2. And when you ask people what the Lib Dems actually stood for, no one knew. Well, now we're beginning to find out. Much as I socially quite like Vince Cable and find him an amusing chap to have a drink with, it is remarkable, isn't it, that we now have a business secretary who appears to actually hate business and want to close them all down. And we have an energy secretary, the ever-ambitious, rather local member of Parliament, of course, from up the road in Eastleigh, Christopher who is intent on despoiling as much of our landscape and our seashores as he possibly can, with a project of building windmills, which means that the average family has about £300 a year extra put on their electricity bill, whilst David Cameron's father-in-law gets 350 grand a year for having wind turbines on his land, and the Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg's wife, is a board director of the biggest Spanish wind farm company. But they've also realised that the Lib Dems, above all, support the whole European project, and that the Lib Dems can't be trusted more than anybody else because their breach of promise over tuition fees, frankly, has meant that trust in them has snapped like an elastic band. And that is why, currently, in the north of England, in London, and amongst 18 to 24-year-olds in this country, UKIP is now the third party above the Lib Dems and climbing higher all the time. So I'm very pleased with that. Very pleased with that. But the biggest loss of faith in British politics is only just beginning. For 13 years, in fact, almost for the entire existence of UKIP as a party, we had the Tories in opposition. So people would say, thank God you're there, Nigel. We're delighted someone is standing up for the country. We admire what you do. And I'd say, well, that's very nice of you, thank you. Are you going to vote for us? Oh no, they'd say. Oh no, we can't vote for you because we want to get Labour out. And that means we have to vote Tory, and that's more important to us. And they used to tell me, just you wait till David gets in. Oh yeah. Just you wait till David gets in. And David was very good, wasn't he? Yeah. Very good, actually, in a Blair-like way. Anyone ever see that famous Private Eye cover? There was a photograph of Tony Blair, photograph next to it of David Cameron, and the headline was, "World's First Successful Face Transplant." I think that said quite a lot. But wasn't Cameron brilliant? You know, I went to a military dinner that he spoke at, a regiment that my father's involved with, and Cameron stood up and said, when the Tories are back in, you can rest assured that the British Armed Forces will be looked after and be secure. And people believed it. And when he went to the various hunt meets that take place in Oxfordshire, He told them, when the Tories are in, we'll repeal the ban. Hunting is a matter of personal conscience, not a matter for the government. And he told us before the election that when a Tory government was in, we'd sweep away the whole human rights European legislation and have a British Bill of Rights. And he told us that he would reduce immigration in this country from its current hundreds of thousands a year to tens of thousands a year. But perhaps the biggest porky of all, and I'm suggesting to you, by the way, not that he hasn't kept these promises, I'm suggesting to you he never meant them in the first place, that he said these things purely as a means of getting votes. Now, the biggest porky of all was, of course, published in the Sun newspaper in 2008, and he wrote in the Sun newspaper in 2008, I give you this cast iron guarantee that when I'm Prime Minister, you will get a referendum on our relationship. Well, now, in 4 interviews that I can count, he has been asked the question, shouldn't the British people have a referendum so that they can decide their future? And his answer on 4 occasions has been no, because I think Britain's interests are best served by staying part of the European Union. So what he is saying is, damn you, I know how you'd vote. I don't trust you to be able to make that decision. I have decided what your future is. And now, a year into this government, it isn't good enough just to blame the coalition. It is Cameron himself who is not prepared to put the interests of this country or the people of this country first. And that is what UKIP is doing loudly and clearly. We are there, going up steadily in the opinion polls. And the establishment are absolutely terrified of us. I'll bet you that if any of the other 3 parties had a meeting tonight in this hall in Lyndhurst, I doubt they'd get even half the number who turned up to this meeting tonight. It's true. And so now what we're seeing are some people in the House of Commons breaking ranks. So we've now got Tory MPs and Labour MPs too saying, well, some say there must be a referendum. Others say we don't need a referendum, but we must regain powers. A chap today in the Telegraph, Mark Pritchard, suggested we have a referendum now and then another referendum in 2 years' time. I mean, they're all over the place. They're all over the place, but they're trying to give the impression that it's okay to stick with the Tory party. There is no need to go to UKIP. And I know from first hand that that meeting that you read about with 120 Tory MPs in the room was in fact operated, set up and run by the Tory whips. But this big idea, there's some mass rebellion, I'm sorry, it's not a mass rebellion. They're doing it because they're terrified of UKIP. They're doing it because our arguments are winning. They're doing it because our vision of how Britain could and should be run is gaining resonance with the public. And my advice to you is not to believe these people, is not to trust these people. Why would you trust the very same people who have given away your birthright, who have given away the rights and privileges that were handed down to you? I will only trust any of them if they deliver actions and not words. You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.